Hey everybody, this is Dan from X-Laser. We're going to take a little break from lasers just for a minute to talk about atmosphere, fog, haze. We get lots of questions about it all the time. What works best? What happens in venues where they say you can't use atmosphere at all? There's some really simple tricks, techniques. We're going to show you the difference between fog and haze, how it looks inside of different patterns, and what works best for you. Now, some of you may be asking, you know, of course Brian knows like everything.
No, he doesn't. He knows nothing.
What do I know about fog and haze? Well, I'm actually a lighting designer by training, and I spent about 10 years in mobile production before I got involved with X-Laser, so I've done a lot with fog and haze, and I just want to sort of give you some of the benefit of my experience having done this a lot. If you look down here, what we have set up down here, just in front of the laser that we have going just for demonstration purposes, we have your standard fog machine. This happens to be a Martin Magnum. It's just a little fog machine. It's just this very simple, basic little thing. And right here, we have a haze generator from American DJ. These are very different in a lot of ways, and we're just going to sort of use them for purposes of comparison. Alright, now almost all of you, everybody, knows what a fog machine is. You know what it is, you know what it does. You have the little thing here, you press the button, and you get this cloud of fog shooting out. Now, what's cool about that is that in the initial part where the cloud of fog shoots out, you get a pretty good look at the beams of light that are coming out of your lighting fixtures. But the problem is that it dissipates so quickly, and in events where you're talking about a wedding or you're talking about a prom or whatever, you don't necessarily always want to have clouds shooting at people. I mean, it's really not subtle. The other thing is, when you're using a lot of fog in a venue where you have it just set up on a timer and periodically just sort of shoots out, you can actually get a density of fog that's up in front of your lights or your lasers or whatever it's going to be, and it'll actually be so dense that it'll actually end up blocking the light, and you'll actually lose some of the impact of that effect. That's not what you want to do in most cases. Now, this is a water-based fog machine down here. This is an oil-based haze machine, and there are some pretty significant differences. Now, you just saw this little puff of fog shoot out of here. By contrast, I'm just going to clear this out a little bit, try and get rid of this cloud. By contrast, you turn on this haze machine, and this is what it does all night long. It's just this little fine mist of haze that comes out. You stick it under your table. In fact, you can probably barely even see it on camera. You just stick it under your table, next to your table, whatever, and it's just this fine, fine mist of haze that comes out all night long. It sort of diffuses beautifully through the air. It just sort of hangs out, and it gives you that punch in your lights without having clouds shooting out at your audience. And this is all it does all night long, and it just sort of hangs out. Now, in part 2 of this video, we're going to tell you a little bit more about these things, give you some tips and techniques for when you can use them, when people say that you can't. But before we leave you, one big point. What's the difference between water-based and oil-based? People ask this all the time. There are a whole bunch of different kinds of foggers, a whole bunch of different kinds of hazers, but the gist of it is this. You have oil-based and water-based. Those are the two most common. Your water-based are generally going to shoot. You're going to get more of a cloud. Even in hazers, usually the water-based ones shoot out. They don't hang around as long. They're more susceptible to air currents. The air blows them all over the place, and they just don't hang in the air as long. With your oil-based hazers, they're going to hang in the air much better. You're going to get a much better effect over a longer period of time, but they're going to be slightly more sensitive to fire alarms that have hydrocarbon-based detectors in them, because they will actually read the oil in the air and go, this shouldn't be there, and it'll set off your fire alarm. But there are ways to avoid that, which we'll talk about in the next video. For my money, and it has been very frequently, I always use very simple oil-based haze machines. They give you the best bang for the buck. They generally tend to be the least expensive, and if you use them properly, you'll get a great effect. Alright guys, welcome back to part 2. In this part, we're going to be talking about how you can use that fog, that haze, that atmosphere in those venues that tell you that you can't. Like I said, I've done this a lot of times, and what people are really concerned about when you're talking about fog and haze in venues is going to be one of two things. It's people slipping all over the place because they're worried that it's going to condense all over the floor, or that you're going to be setting off fire alarms. I'm going to teach you how to avoid both of those here in just a second. If you pan down just a little bit, we were running this literally for, what, 10 seconds, 10, 15 seconds?
Not long at all.
And you can already see, hopefully, there's actually a slick of fluid that has come out of the front of this fogger. That's true with a lot of different kinds of foggers, and they will spit a little bit of fluid as they're making their clouds. Haze machines don't do that. They don't condense onto anything. Now, some people will say, and it's true, that with an oil-based haze machine, if you run it for a really long time, when in a high-density environment, you got a lot of haze, that it will leave a little oily slick on stuff. That's absolutely true, but in a mobile setting where you're doing a wedding, a prom, it's not going to happen in 4 or 5 hours. It's just not. It takes days, and in some cases weeks, to build up that little slick. And otherwise, it doesn't do anything. It just sort of evacuates through the HVAC system, and that's kind of the end of it. So when you're going into a venue for a prom, for a whatever, and they say, well, you can't use haze, you can't use fog, you say, well, first of all, I want to let you know, I'm not using fog. I'm not shooting clouds out. There are not going to be a whole bunch of clouds in your venue. And, you know, some event sponsors are even like, oh my God, what if people can't see to walk around and all that sort of stuff? You say, no, don't worry about that. We don't use fog machines. We're not shooting clouds at you. What we do is we use this haze. And this haze comes out and basically creates just a little mist, just like a bathroom after a hot shower. It's just a little something that hangs out in the air, and usually what we'll do when we do site surveys is actually go out and bring one of these guys with us, turn it on, and they go, oh, that's it? And you go, yeah, that's it. And that's what it does all night. Now, in about 3,000 performances-ish that we've done with haze, we've set off a fire alarm exactly twice, and both of those were really, really extreme situations. The easiest way to not set off a fire alarm with haze is just not to use that much of it. You don't need very much. In fact, you need very little at all. A really good measurement is when you're DJing and you're standing behind the light, when you can look forward at your light and see the beams of light going through the air, you don't need any more haze. Turn it off. Realistically, when we do most events, we'll run a hazer for maybe 5 minutes on, 5 minutes off, and that's it. That's all it takes. It's just a little something just to highlight the beams of light that are coming out of the fixture. It doesn't take more than that, and if you run it more than that, you're probably going to end up setting off a fire alarm. A really quick, easy solution is there are a number of companies, American DJ, and I believe Chauvet may also have one as well. It's called a lightsaver or something like it, where it's basically like a co-pilot. You plug your hazer, and this hazer is only 75 watts, by the way, so you can put it almost anywhere. This hazer, I think, is like 1,000 watts. Oh, sorry, yeah, fogger. This fogger is almost 1,000 watts. 75 watts. You can put it almost anywhere. Anyway, so you plug this thing into your co-pilot, into your lightsaver, whatever, and it'll turn it on and off for you every 3, 4, 5 minutes, and so you don't even have to worry about it. You just do your thing, it'll put out a little bit of haze for you all night, it'll make your lights look great, and you'll never have to worry about setting off a fire alarm. And for those venues that say, absolutely not, you can't do it, it's gonna set off our fire alarms, blah, 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 the last recourse is in almost every jurisdiction in America, you can get an off-duty fire marshal for about $25–30 an hour. The fire marshal will come down to the venue and stand right next to the fire alarm panel, and if you somehow set off the fire alarm, he'll just turn his little key and turn it off. That's acceptable to almost every venue because having a fire marshal on the premises is very good for their insurance policy. It's no problem with them. And then at that point, then you can haze the hell out of the place and who cares because there's a fire marshal standing right there. But long story short, there are lots of ways around this, and there are very, very few places that absolutely, no matter what, will not allow fog or haze. Sometimes it takes just a little bit of education, but with that little bit of education, you can make some major upsales in lighting, lasers, whatever you want to do. Hope that helps you.